little wooden boat, painted a soft, weathered blue, rested quietly in the cradle of the secluded cove. High cliffs of ancient stone rose up around the water, sheltering it from the restless winds of the outer sea. The water here was so clear and still that it looked like a sheet of polished glass, reflecting the sky above. In the late afternoon, the sun hung low, casting long, golden fingers of light across the bay. The boat swayed slightly, its timber creaking in a rhythmic, comforting sigh. There was no hurry in its gentle motion, just a steady, peaceful cadence that matched the slow heartbeat of the cove. Every element of the scene seemed to conspire to create an atmosphere of perfect repose, inviting all things to rest. Inside the boat, a simple wooden bench ran across the middle, worn smooth by years of quiet journeys. A small brass lantern sat at the bow, its metal polished to a warm glow that caught the fading sunlight. A soft wool blanket, dyed in shades of forest green and slate gray, lay folded neatly on the bench, ready for the cool air of the evening. The air was warm, smelling of sun-baked pine trees, salt water, and wild herbs from the shore. Everything was silent, save for the tiny ripples tapping against the hull, a soft and repetitive sound that invited a deep sense of calm, washing away the thoughts of the busy day. The tide began to change, a gentle and invisible force that slowly coaxed the little boat away from the shoreline. Without a sound, the boat slipped out of its cove, passing between two rocky headlands that stood like silent guardians. The open sea lay ahead, vast and impossibly calm, stretching out to meet the horizon in a seamless curve. There were no waves, only a slow, rhythmic rise and fall of the water, like the deep and steady breathing of a sleeping giant. The boat moved out into this emptiness, cradled by the gentle rhythm of the ocean swell, drifting without effort or concern. As the boat drifted further from the land, the distant sounds of the forest began to fade. The rustle of pine needles and the faint calls of evening birds were replaced by a profound, peaceful silence. The sky was turning a soft lavender, with streaks of peach and dusty rose painting the western horizon. The little boat moved without a destination, guided only by the gentle pull of the ocean currents. It was a journey with no purpose other than to float and exist in the quiet space between sea and sky, leaving all worries far behind on the shore, disappearing into the twilight. The sun dipped below the edge of the world, leaving behind a sky of deep sapphire and warm violet. The transition from day to night was slow and graceful, like a curtain being gently drawn across a stage. The water changed color, mirroring the dark sky until it looked like a deep, bottomless mirror. The air grew slightly cooler, carrying a light breeze that brushed against the boat like a soft hand. The wood of the hull, warmed by the day's sun, radiated a gentle heat that made the small cabin space feel warm and secure, a safe haven on the peaceful waters. One by one, the stars began to appear in the high dome of the sky. They started as faint, blinking pinpricks of silver, growing brighter and steadier as the darkness deepened. Soon, the entire vault of the heavens was filled with countless stars, forming patterns and paths of light. Because the sea was so calm, each star was reflected perfectly on the water's surface. The little boat seemed to float in the middle of a vast, starlit space, suspended between two infinities of light, drifting through a universe of quiet splendor and endless peace, where time itself had no meaning. The silence of the night was not empty, but filled with the soft, soothing sounds of the sea. There was the occasional gentle splash of a fish jumping far away, leaving a circle of expanding ripples. There was the whisper of the light wind as it slid over the wooden mast, creating a low, humming note. These sounds were steady and repetitive, a natural lullaby that invited the mind to rest. The boat drifted onward, a tiny speck of warmth in a cool, dark, and beautiful world, safe in the embrace of the night, rocking slowly in time with the water. Under the seat, a small wooden box contained a few simple treasures, a smooth sea glass pebble, a white feather, and a compass that pointed steadily north, though the boat paid it no mind. The compass needle floated in its liquid chamber, spinning slowly as the boat turned in a gentle eddy. The journey was not about direction, but about surrender to the water's slow flow. The little boat moved in harmony with the sea, asking nothing and receiving everything, floating peacefully in the quiet current of the dark ocean, content to be exactly where it was. A group of small, silver fish began to swim alongside the boat, their scales catching the starlight and glowing like tiny lanterns. They moved in unison, a silent escort through the dark water. The fish stayed close to the wooden side of the boat, their movements creating tiny, shimmering trails of light. The sight of them was comforting, a reminder of the quiet life that existed beneath the calm surface of the sea, moving in the same slow, peaceful rhythm that carried the boat forward through the night, a dance of light and water. The air smelled increasingly of ozone and fresh water, a clean and renewing scent. The little boat rocked gently as a long, slow swell passed beneath it, lifting the bow and then letting it settle back down. The movement was slow and predictable, like the rocking of a cradle. The wooden planks of the boat seemed to absorb the rhythm, transferring the calming motion to everything inside. It was a motion that cleared away all thoughts of hurry and worry, leaving only peace, and the soft, repetitive sound of the water against the hull. In the distance, the silhouette of a small island appeared, a dark mound against the starlit sky. The island was covered in tall, ancient trees that stood silent and still, their branches outstretched to catch the starlight. The boat did not drift toward the island, but passed it at a respectful distance, watching its quiet form slide slowly by. The island felt like a monument to patience, standing firm while the water and the boat drifted on, a quiet anchor in the vast and silent sea, a reminder of the strength of stillness. The breeze carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine from the island, a sweet and heavy perfume that drifted across the water. It mixed with the salty air, creating a scent that was both fresh and comforting. The little boat caught a small puff of this wind, turning its bow slightly to the east. The lantern at the bow cast a soft, yellow circle of light on the water, showing the path ahead was clear and peaceful, a golden road on the dark water, guiding the boat toward deeper, quieter spaces. Below the surface, the water began to glow with a faint, bioluminescent light. Every movement of the boat's hull created a soft blue radiance, like cold fire. The wake of the boat was a long, glowing tail that stretched out behind it, slowly fading back into the dark. It was as if the sea itself was dreaming, expressing its thoughts in patterns of blue light. The little boat traveled on this path of starlight and glowing water, leaving a trail of magic behind it, floating on a sea of stars and light. A large sea turtle rose slowly to the surface nearby, its ancient shell glistening with bioluminescent algae. It took a deep, quiet breath of the night air, a sound like a soft sigh, and then looked at the little boat with calm, dark eyes. The turtle swam beside the boat for a few minutes, its large flippers moving with slow grace. Its presence was a silent blessing, a companionship that required no words or actions, just a shared moment of peace in the middle of the wide, silent ocean. The turtle dipped its head and slid back down into the dark water, leaving behind a trail of glowing bubbles that slowly rose and popped. The little boat continued its journey, the space where the turtle had been remaining warm in the mind. The sea was full of such brief, beautiful encounters, each one a gift to be appreciated and then let go. The boat drifted on, empty of passengers but full of peace, gliding through the silent, glowing water of the bay, safe in the night. A light fog began to form on the surface of the water, rising like steam from a warm bath. It was soft and white, draping itself over the sea in thin, ghostly sheets. The fog did not obscure the stars above, but it softened the horizon, making the boundary between the water and the sky disappear entirely. The boat felt even more secluded now, wrapped in a blanket of soft mist that muffled all sound, creating a private world of perfect silence, where the mind could drift freely. In the fog, the light from the lantern became a soft, glowing sphere of yellow, illuminating the mist around the bow. The light did not pierce the fog, but lived within it, creating a warm and safe space. The little boat moved through this quiet world, the mist parting gently before it and closing again behind it. It was like floating through a dream where everything was soft, silent, and protected, a sanctuary of light in the middle of the mist, keeping the world outside far away. The water remained perfectly calm beneath the fog, its surface undisturbed by the slightest ripple. The boat seemed to be suspended in a cloud, moving forward without any sensation of speed or effort. The only evidence of movement was the slow passing of the glowing bioluminescent patches below. It was a suspension of time, a moment where the past and the future ceased to exist, leaving only the quiet present and the gentle rocking of the wooden hull, a slow dance in the silent mist. Far away, the deep, resonant song of a whale echoed through the water. It was a sound that was felt rather than heard, a low vibration that vibrated through the wooden planks of the boat. The song was slow and melodic, an ancient language of the deep sea that spoke of vast spaces and quiet times. The little boat listened to the vibration, its wood humming in sympathy with the giant singer, feeling connected to the vastness of the deep, a part of a larger, peaceful world. The whale's song faded back into the silence, leaving the air even quieter than before. The fog began to lift, rising up into the sky to join the clouds. The stars emerged once more, looking even brighter and cleaner after the mist had passed. The air was cool and crisp, filling the lungs with a clean, refreshing feeling. The little boat rocked in agreement, its mast pointing to a new star in the sky, continuing its peaceful night journey, guided by the light of the stars. The moon began to rise over the eastern horizon, a thin crescent of silver light. It was a young moon, delicate and bright, casting a slender path of white light across the water. The path stretched from the horizon all the way to the side of the little boat, like a silver road built just for it. The boat turned slightly, its bow aligning with the silver path, and began to drift along it, guided by the soft light of the night, moving deeper into the calm sea. The moonlight revealed the details of the water's surface, showing tiny patterns of currents that flowed like rivers within the sea. These currents were gentle, twisting and turning in slow spirals that carried the boat along. The wood of the boat was damp with dew, the water droplets catching the moonlight and shining like diamonds. Every surface of the boat was decorated with these tiny, glowing gems, transforming the simple wooden craft into a vessel of starlight, shining silently in the dark. A soft, warm wind began to blow from the south, bringing with it the warmth of tropical seas. The wind was gentle, just enough to ruffle the surface of the water into tiny, glittering scales. The little boat felt the lift of the wind, its hull sliding more easily over the water. The warmth of the wind was like a blanket, keeping the cool night air at bay and making the cockpit feel cozy, warm, and inviting for the long, peaceful night, a shelter from the dark. In the middle of the boat, the folded wool blanket seemed to invite a traveler to lie down and look at the stars. The wooden planks, though hard, were supportive and stable, rocked by a movement that was as old as the earth itself. The boat was a safe harbor in the middle of the deep, a small piece of wood that stood between the traveler and the endless water. It was built well, with strong ribs and tight seams, holding back the sea and keeping all within safe. The lantern at the bow flickered slightly as the wind shifted, its flame dancing behind the glass. The light cast long, jumping shadows across the deck, making the wood look alive. The oil in the lantern was low, but it had enough to last until the morning, its steady light a promise of safety. The little boat trusted its light, keeping its bow pointed toward the open, peaceful water, drifting onward through the dark and silent night, a beacon of peace. A small seabird, tired from its long flight, swooped down and landed gently on the tip of the mast. It tucked its beak under its wing and fell asleep immediately, its tiny body rocking with the movement of the boat. The bird's presence was a sign of trust, a statement that the boat was a safe place to rest. The boat carried its sleeping passenger carefully, avoiding any sudden movements that might wake it, drifting under the stars in perfect harmony with the bird. The sea was so quiet that the sound of the water lapping against the hull was like a whisper. It was a sound that spoke of ancient journeys, of wooden boats that had sailed these waters for thousands of years. The sea remembered them all, and it welcomed the little boat into its memory. The boat was part of a long tradition of quiet vessels, moving with the wind and the tide, finding peace in the middle of the infinite ocean, a speck of calm. The stars began to wheel slowly across the sky, marking the passage of the night. The constellations shifted, some dipping below the horizon while others rose to take their place. The great river of the Milky Way ran directly overhead, a band of white dust that looked like a path through the heavens. The little boat drifted under this celestial highway, a small companion to the giant stars, moving silently through the deep darkness of the night, a tiny traveler in the dark. The water below became darker, a deep violet that seemed to swallow the light. Yet, the bioluminescence remained, a constant reminder of the life that lived in the dark. Every now and then, a larger shape would glide by deep below, a slow-moving shadow that left a trail of blue light in its wake. These creatures were peaceful, moving through their vast home without any fear or hurry, sharing the quiet night with the drifting boat in mutual silence. The air became very still, the wind dying down to a whisper and then disappearing. The sea returned to its glass-like state, the reflections of the stars becoming sharp and clear once more. The little boat stopped its forward movement, drifting in a slow circle as the local currents eddied. It was a moment of absolute stillness, a pause in the breath of the world, where time itself seemed to stand completely still, suspended in the quiet dark. In this stillness, the sounds of the boat itself became more noticeable. The creak of the mast, the sigh of the timber, the gentle splash of water against the rudder. These were the voices of the boat, telling its own story of endurance and peace. The wood had been cut from a great tree in a quiet forest, and it still carried the quiet strength of its origin, standing firm against the gentle pull of the water, a testament to time. The sleeping seabird on the mast stirred slightly, adjusting its balance as the boat rocked, and then went back to sleep. The connection between the bird and the boat was simple and beautiful, a mutual understanding of the need for rest. The boat was happy to provide shelter, its mast a high perch above the dark water. They moved together, two sleeping things on a quiet sea, sharing the comfort of the night, floating in peace. Below, a school of jellyfish floated by, their transparent bodies glowing with a soft, green light. They looked like lanterns floating in the dark, moving up and down in a slow, rhythmic dance. The jellyfish did not touch the boat, but passed beneath it, their long tentacles trailing like silk threads. The sight of them was hypnotic, their simple, repetitive movement encouraging a deep, peaceful sleep that washed over the quiet sea, calming the mind. The silver path of the moonlight began to shift as the moon climbed higher in the sky. The light became more direct, casting a cold, clean glow over the entire sea. The water looked like a sheet of hammered silver, bright and shining. The little boat looked beautiful in this light, its blue paint softened to a slate gray, its wood looking silver and old, a ghost ship sailing on a sea of light, silent and magnificent. The wood of the boat was cold to the touch now, covered in a thin layer of night dew. The dew ran down the sides in tiny streams, washing away the salt dust of the day. The boat was being cleaned by the night, prepared for the morning that was still hours away. Inside, the wool blanket remained dry and warm, a protected nest in the center of the damp world, keeping the cold away, wrapping all in warmth. Far on the horizon, a flash of silent lightning illuminated a distant cloud. It was too far away to bring thunder, a silent show of light that did not disturb the peace of the night. The lightning was a reminder of the power of nature, a power that was currently resting in a quiet sleep. The little boat watched the light, secure in its calm circle of sea, protected from the storm, resting in the quiet. The air began to grow colder, the deepest chill of the night that comes before the dawn. The stars looked sharper, their light piercing the cold air with a brilliant intensity. The little boat seemed to shrink slightly in the cold, its timbers tightening, its structure becoming solid and strong. It was a well-made boat, built to withstand the cold and the wet, keeping its inner space safe and warm, a shield against the night. A gentle current caught the boat, drawing it out of the circular eddy and back into a steady flow. The boat began to move forward again, its rudder guiding it in a straight line. The movement was slow and effortless, a slide across the silver water. The little boat was a part of the sea now, moving with its breath, sharing its quiet journey, drifting toward the morning, a silent traveler on the endless ocean. The sleeping bird on the mast woke up, stretched its wings, and let out a soft peep. It looked around at the starlit sky and the silver sea, and then tucked its head back under its wing. It was not yet time to fly, the night was still too beautiful, the boat too comfortable. The boat accepted the bird's decision, continuing its steady, quiet movement through the dark water, sharing the peace of the final hours. The stars in the east began to look slightly fainter, their light diluted by a subtle change in the sky. The deep black of the night was softening to a dark indigo, the first sign that the dawn was on its way. The change was almost imperceptible, a gradual shifting of shades that only the sea and the boat could feel. The world was preparing to wake, but slowly, without any rush, enjoying the final moments of peace before light. The bioluminescent light in the water began to fade, its soft blue glow replaced by the faint light of the sky. The creatures of the deep were returning to their daytime homes, leaving the surface to the light of the sun. The little boat watched them go, its wake returning to a simple trail of bubbles. The transition was peaceful, a passing of the guard from night to day, clean, quiet, and perfectly smooth. A bank of low clouds on the eastern horizon began to turn a soft rose color, their edges gilded with gold. The light of the sun was still hidden, but its approach was heralded by these beautiful colors. The sea caught the reflection, the silver water turning a delicate pink and lavender. The little boat floated on a sea of pastel colors, looking like a painting, silent and still, suspended in the dawn. The bird on the mast woke up for the second time, its eyes bright and alert. It hopped along the spar, looking down at the deck, and then took off with a soft flap of its wings. It circled the boat once, a silent goodbye, and then flew off toward the rising sun. The sky grew brighter, the dark indigo turning to a clear, pale blue. The stars had all disappeared now, except for the morning star, which shone bright and lonely in the western sky. The light was clean and cold, revealing the vastness of the empty sea. There were no other boats, no land in sight, only the endless circle of the horizon and the boat in the center, resting in the quiet daylight. The sun finally broke through the clouds on the horizon, a brilliant spark of golden light. It rose quickly, its warmth spreading across the cold water and chasing away the dew. The little boat felt the warmth immediately, its wooden planks dry and warm once more. The brass of the lantern caught the first rays, shining like a small sun itself, casting a warm light over the bow and warming the bench. The water changed color again, the pinks and lavenders replaced by a deep, brilliant blue. The sea was still calm, but it was alive with the light of the day. Small ripples caught the sunlight, creating millions of sparkling stars on the surface of the water. The little boat moved through this field of light, its blue paint looking bright and cheerful under the vast sky, sailing toward the shore. A gentle breeze from the west began to blow, a fresh wind that carried the scent of the open sea. The wind was cool but pleasant, filling the small space of the boat with fresh air. The little boat turned its bow toward the wind, its wood creaking in a happy, energetic way. The journey was not over, but it had changed, the quiet of the night giving way to the energy of the day, moving forward. In the distance, the outline of the home cove began to appear, a welcoming shape of green hills and gray rocks. The little boat drifted toward it, guided by the familiar currents and the gentle wind. The boat had traveled far in the night, but it had returned, full of the peace of the calm sea. It entered the quiet cove and came to rest, its journey complete, ready for the next quiet night, safe and warm.